Make sure we live on the other end.
Libation on deck.
There you
Okay. Says we live. All right, we'll be right back.
Go, 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 Griot. Go, 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 Griot. Go, 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 Griot. Yeah, I'm in the city, yeah. I'm in the spot, in the vicinity. I'm the hottest up in the city, yeah, it really is. I studied the ones that was the realest, the illest, that invented that. Talking about Griots, West African passages for the street stone. Adios mio, make you get about the Afro-Latino. Rock their traditions from Africa's West Central. Let's raise a toast to the ancestors of old. For the knowledge comes in the form of a griot. In the form of a griot.
All right. Welcome back to the Griot Podcast.
Yes, sir. In the building, baby.
Where them claps at, Kofi? Hey.
Come on, man.
I let my sister introduce herself first, and then we'll go down the line.
I love it. I am here for it. Hey, yo, what up, good and wonderful people? My name is Dr. Ashley Wade. I'm so happy to be tapped in with y'all today on the Griots Podcast. I'm a pharmacist. I'm the owner of ADH Pharmacy Consulting, where we talk all things medicine, insurance, healthcare. I'm all in that bag. And plus, there's a range of services that I offer through my consulting firm. Again, I'm an author, podcast host of Read with Dr. Wade and Friends book club, curator of Corks and Covers, and full out community and literacy advocate. And see, I'm learning this part. What is it? Hold on, still getting my title and stuff together. Chief Executive of a Sealy magazine. Hey, if you have not taken a look at that 4th edition, it's fresh off the press. Tap in.
Yeah.
Passing it to my good people.
All right. I guess I'll go. My name is Kofi Piesie. I'm an author. I'm a writer. I'm a ghostwriter. I'm a publisher, public speaker, a lecturer, music producer, amongst other things.
And bringing up the rear, the land of plains, the man Sean P coming in live. I am the host of the Sean P Experience. I am also a part of the Wake Up Show with Joe Dupree in the morning, 5 days a week. Community activist, scholar, self-published author, amongst other things. And most importantly, I am 1/3 of the Griots Podcast, man. Come on, man. We in here in the building. Talking that black thought, bro. Going down today, man.
Yes. Let's give the podcast an applause.
Hey, Kofi, I lose count fast. What number is this? Number 6?
Number 6, season 3.
Season 3, episode 6. Now let's stop with this. Let's soak on this for a little bit. How many TV shows don't last 3 seasons? How many things come on TV that come and go so fast? Like, bruh, how many other podcasts have started? Not dissing nobody. Other things have started and then it came and went, and we still here. I want to take time and acknowledge and soak it in, embrace the longevity, man. I want to salute that right quick.
Yeah.
It's a huge accomplishment. Huge accomplishment. And I think I was talking to you earlier about like the beauty of it. You know what I'm saying? Like the way we converse and the things that we say. It ain't nothing like it. There's none other like this one right here. So I'm very proud of what we're building here.
No doubt. All right. So before we get into it, I always want to give a rundown, the outline of the show for today. So the outline for the Griot Podcast today is the opening segment that's honoring teaching scholars, writers, authors, and revolutionaries from the past or present. That is followed up by my brother Seanathan Polidore. The Griots and Griotes segment, that's another segment, is followed up by myself. We have the commercial segment where we briefly promote and our books, products, and other people products and services as well. Just hit us up if you want us to promote it on here, and we'll definitely shout you out, right? The commercial, discussion segment for today is the book review. It is on Tariq Black Thought Trotter's new bestseller, New York best time seller, the Upcycled Self, the memoir on the art of becoming who we are. We also have the woman segment, like I always want to keep reiterating, which is one of my favorite section that is briefly talking about and giving flowers to women who have contributed something of value to the political world, writing world, author world, business world, medical world, and academia world. That is followed up by my beautiful sister, Dr. Ashley Wade. So now that you have the outline of what today's show is going to look like, let's get into the opening segment.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So every podcast we do, no matter what the theme is, I try to find an opening segment to coincide with the theme. Of course, this podcast being about Tariq Trotter, aka Black Thought, it made it a little more tough than normal to try to find a coinciding piece, but I think I figured it out. So today's opening segment, I want to give honor and reverence to the ancestor Amir Baraka, right? Amir Baraka. So Black Thought mentioned him in the book in that Philadelphia area, him being around Sonia Sanchez, Amir Baraka, he listed some other major names in that Philadelphia region. He was able to be around for an extended period of time on a daily, regular basis, sharpening his sword, right? So here we go. Maria Baraka, firebrand poet and playwright, born Everett Leroy Jones, 1934 is his birthday. That's crazy. 1934 to 2014. It's a long life. Baraka became a blazing voice in Black art, using words as weapons for Black liberation and cultural revolution. He was the architect of the Black art movement. He helped to ignite the 1960s Black art movement, pushing for art rooted in Black life, struggle, and beauty, calling art the weapon in the battle for liberation. From beat to Black nationalist, started in the beat scene after Malcolm X's assassination, he turned toward Black nationalism and Pan-Africanism, recentering his mission on the Black self-determination. So he was a Pan-Africanist. Controversial and unapologetic, his work challenged racism, capitalism, and imperialism with raw and searing honesty, right? From Dutchman to the Blues, he demanded accountability and action. And lastly, his legacy of resistance. Baraka's fire influenced generations of poets, playwrights, and activists, reminding us that art is not neutral and neither is the poet who dares to speak. So it's important for this particular podcast because, of course, we know Black Thought is individual, and then the Roots itself, their brand of hip-hop and what they represent in the culture is definitely about Black people, history, liberation, and where we stand with our things. So, they got different kinds of hip-hop, different genres of it. These guys go into a particular category that's set apart from a lot of other parts of hip-hop, right? So Amir Baraka is the forefather of that. So salute Amir Baraka.
Salute, salute, salute. All right, now that we had that opening segment out of the way, let's get into the Griots segment. We have to go through these segments before we get into the discussion, right? So what is a griot and a griotis, right? What is a griot and a griotis? It is unique to Western Africa. The griot or jelly professionally encompass many roles. The griot, pronounced griot, griotis, pronounced griotis, have been referred to an historian and storytellers, but there are no real words in the real English language that includes all of the functions. The traditional griot could do everything from recounting history to composing music to teaching students to acting as a diplomat. They are genealogists, historians, spokespersons, ambassadors, musicians, teachers, warriors, interpreters, praise singers, masters of ceremonies, advisors, negotiators, and mediators. Not every griot or griotis does all of those things, But these are all examples of the functions that the griots professional embodies. So a griot and a griots, again, we always want to continue to reiterate that, because a lot of us know griots to be either historians or storytellers. That's the most popular thing, but they're more than just storytellers. They have so many functions and characteristics, again, and they most definitely are important to the culture. And now, and in our days time, we are all considered modern day griots, right? So we facilitate an important role as well in our culture in the 21st century. So there you have it with the griot and griots segment. Go ahead, my brother.
Just real fast, just run through. The movie Sinners, of course, highlighted griots a lot in Sinners, right? And even in this book, he mentioned in certain parts of the book about the guys on the block, the griot, the old school cats that taught him a lot of game. They might not go to school, formally go to college and nothing like that, but they were well studied, well learned in various things about his life experience, man. They were still griots, right? And other publications as well, we seeing more and more griots being that name being called forward. So many things I'm seeing lately. I took that away all the time. Man, they mention griots. This they mention griots. Like it's just chiming right now, man, for some reason. So I want to acknowledge that.
I want to say, I'm just going to toot our own home, and and it could not be, but I'm just going to throw it out there. The Griots Podcast, everything that we talk about is griots. We've been pushing the modern day griot movement, for the past few years. I know at least the last 3 years, so a lot of people that I know through this podcast and through Dr. Ashley Wade and through you, Sean, we have introduced this term of griot and even the new term modern day griot, and expose people to, okay, even now that you know of this term or this terminology, you also that as well, because you're demonstrating through this, that, and the third, you're already facilitating a role of a modern day griot or a griot and how important it is. So, I want to say, we might have had a part in that, through this podcast and through various conversation with other people and through hashtags. I know every time I post something, it has the modern day griots and griot hashtags. I don't give a damn if I'm talking about sipping some coffee. I got the hashtag modern day griots and griots. So, maybe we had something to do with that getting in the algorithm, man, and people speaking about it, Yeah. So the commercial segment, right? Let's get into the commercial segment, then we'll get into, today's discussion, right? So the commercial segment is, I definitely want to, if you people are not aware, if you under a rock somewhere, please go out and get that fourth edition. I'm saying third, the fourth edition of the Excelle magazine, right? What Queens about the community, right? I'm definitely proud of that edition. Each edition that we do, our editions are getting bigger and bigger, and the writers, we getting more writers who want to be involved. This ain't us reaching out to other people, even though that's what we want to do too, is reach out. But we got people that are reaching out that want to be involved. You know what I'm saying? In the process, that want to be involved with a piece in the magazine, right? So go get that magazine. The executive, our chief executive, Dr. Ashley Wade, this was her first baby. She conducted great, excellent interviews by Kwete and Ajwa. Definitely go get that. And also, we got a new section I'm proud of. That is the young and gifted section. If you know any writer that is young and gifted or have any type of specific skills, whether we have to write about it or they write about themselves, get into it. So, and the writer is my daughter, for people that might not know, but that is my daughter who writes. It is an important piece. You know what I'm saying? It's important to be yourself. It's important to not compromise who you are because you're surrounded around a community that might like this type of music or might dress this type of way or love this type of way. So, shout out, what I'm saying, to the Excelle magazine contributors, and go get that edition, man. Queens about the community. Go get that. That is the fourth edition. and we'll be dropping another one here in August. We do an edition every other month. We don't do one every month, but every other month. So go get that. Also, go get Acting on Your Dreams and Visions. You know, we want to continue to promote that book as well. We got a great response from that. We want to continue to talk about that book, Acting on Your. She got it right there for you to see, and the Acting on Your Dreams and Vision workbook that complements the other book. You know what I'm saying? And we had the class also go along with that. Hopefully, we'll be able to present that, again before the year out. Hopefully, the audio book, Acting on Your Dreams and Vision audio book, narrated by our brother D. Lewis and Miss Flo. So shout out to them both. Also, we want to continue to promote Team RBG mixtape, The Gumbo. If you're looking for something with subject, Vengeance Radio. It is on Live 360 Radio. It is an online radio station. So if you're looking for music that has some type of substance where it don't have a bunch of profanity, it's not talking and giving a bunch of drug references, it's not talking about degrading our women, it's not, go check that radio station out, man. Vengeance Radio. It is on Live 360 Radio as well, the Genius Level Radio if you into that high caliber rap such as Nas, Jay-Z, Razz, some of the Styles P, what I call wordsmith, or even who the person we're going to talk about today, Black Thought, right? Which is also a wordsmith, a barsmith, as we will call it. So let's get into it. I want to throw this up on here before we get into the discussion. And let me throw this brother up. This is Black Thought, right? Tariq Lukman Trotter is his real name, right? Tariq Lukman Trotter was born October the 3rd, 1973, better known as Black Thought. He is an American writer, singer, actor, and the lead MC of the hip-hop group, the legendary group, I would say, The Roots, which he co-founded with the drummer Quest in Philadelphia, regarded as one of the most skilled, incisive, and prolific rapper of his time. He is widely lauded from his live performance skills, continuous multi-syllable rhyme schemes, complex lyricism, double entendres, and political awareness lyrics, right? This is Black Thought. So we're going to be digging in today's his book, The Upcycled Self. So The Upcycled Self, the memoir on the art of becoming who we are. The audiobook, for those who want the audiobook, the length is 3 hours and 51 minutes. Narrated by Tariq Trotter, Rick Samuel Price, and Elise Johnson, right? Random House Group, Random House Audio. The physical copy book, The Upcycled Self, the memoir, the art of becoming who we are. The print link is 206 pages. It's not a book, big book. I even like the writing style in it and the format of the style. So it's easy to read, flow, and, to get in there, get it in, and get it out. Published by One World, an imprint of Random House, a division of Pendulum Random House, LLC, New York. Published date was November the 14th, 2023. The Upcycled Self, and I'll digress. The definition is recycling in such a way that results products of a higher value than original item to create an object of greater value from a discard object of lesser value, man. I love that, man. I love that title, man. Upcycled Self. It caught my eye, and then even digging into the meaning of it, you know what I'm saying? I kind of understand from his story, his life story, on why he would choose that title of Upcycled Self, man. So y'all, let's get into it, man. Oh, and real quick, the name of the chapters of the book of the Upcycled Self, who you are, it's broken. This book is broken into 4 parts. The prelude, which is the first part. Who are you? Who are your people? The Fire, Cassandra, Concetti, Sahili, Trotter, which is his mother, The Creative Reckoning, Mount Airy, Part 2, Where Are You From? Philadelphia, A World, Family, Baltimore, Mini, It Takes a Village. The third part, What is Your Art? World of Hip Hop, Graffiti, Doing the Work, Amir Thomas, An Epidemic, New City, New Self, Along, The Square Roots, and the fourth part, the epilogue, the upcycle. Right. So let's get into it, y'all. Where y'all want to start at? I'll let y'all start, and let's just get it in, man. Let's get it in.
Before we dig into any kind of depth, anything like that, per like part, what's some of y'all like opening overall thoughts about the book itself? Your reading experience, was it difficult? Was it easy? Your star rating, stuff like that. Overall.
Right. Okay. Okay. Well, for me, I gave it even I got it in the side, I did like a simple review and an observation as I was reading the book. This is my second time actually reading the book. I read the book last year, and then I read it, this year. I always do my thing. I do immerse reading, so I have the audio. So I was listening to the audio and reading the book, at the same time. So I enjoyed it more the second time than I read it the first time. So I give it 5 stars out of 5. I can relate to a lot of the things that went on for him in his younger age, and lately I've been talking about trauma and mental health and healing a whole lot lately. So I can relate to a lot of the things that went on in his life, you know what I'm saying? So I get a lot of trauma out of this. I get perseverance. I get overcoming. I get determination. That's what I've got out of the book.
My bad. I thought Dr. Will's going there. My fault. Yeah, I give it a 5 out of 5, man. No complaints whatsoever. Like you said, it's a short book. The audio is short.
Mm-hmm.
No 3 hours fly by. You be like, damn, it's over already.
Mm-hmm.
The book itself is small, right? So like, suppose that scared of a big book, you scared to take on a big old challenge. It could be a weekend read, something you can knock out in a relatively short period of time, but it still packs an impactful punch. I'm a huge Black Thought fan. You asked me about my top rappers of all time. I came into the book as a rap fan first. So when the book first came out, I was there on November the 14th, 2023. I was there in a tsunami outside. I drove to go and get it in the rain. Like, I had to have it on pub day. You know what I'm saying? That kind of thing. But reading it again recently, I told y'all this in private. I'm gonna say it on the podcast. When I read the book in 2023, my grandfather was still here. Other parts of my life was different as well. But like now, reading it now, my grandfather has passed and things like that. The book deals with grief a lot. It's damn near like a grief book. It's about different kinds of grief, not just like death grief, but different things you lose along life. The book is a grief book and how you deal with that. How do you overcome, like Kofi said, persevere and come on the other side of it as a better version, upcycled, right?
Yes.
I had never heard of upcycle until this book title.
Me neither.
And we get further into the book about him dealing with the dictionary and encyclopedia and words. It makes sense that his book would be called something you never heard of before in your life, right? That makes sense. So I'm gonna leave it at that. Let Dr. Wade get up 25 points and cook. And there it is.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely appreciate y'all's perspective for sure. And upcycle, we hear that a lot in fashion with a lot of these resellers and thrifters. They use that word a lot. So I was like, okay, but I appreciate y'all putting me on because musically, I love lyricism and I'll be on that. But I was like at the tail end of like that 80s, 90s rap. You know what I'm saying? So I know of the roots, but I really wasn't put onto Black Thought like that. So this was my first introduction to Black Thought as a person, as a creator. So like, I was tapping in, Sean sent me some videos and stuff. I was like, no, bro is full. Like, bro is full. So being able to hear about his story was so neat. I give it a 5 out of 5. And I always, appreciate the posture of a Black man in his attempt to be vulnerable. You know, I talked about that. That's going to be something that I highlight a lot as we get into it. I appreciate the attempt to be vulnerable and share your story, no matter if it's, you know, deep in the weeds or however it comes out. I appreciate it because we do honor our Black men. We do want to continue to create spaces to where they feel safe. I still have my reservations about the vulnerability piece, and like I wanted to hear more, but I'm very, very grateful of what he shared. And the book is full of gems. Like the book is full of gems. I mean, everywhere. And I love that he shows his wisdom by the gems that he drops in the book. And it's amazing. I can't wait to get into it even more. But again, musically, brother, 10 out of 10. He can go.
Mm-hmm.
He can go. I didn't know that. So like I was introduced.
I am so glad.
Because I was introduced because I do love lyricists. I mean,
so glad.
So I'm gonna leave it right there until we get.
Let's sit in for the podcast too, right? Because today about flowers. Let's do today about flowers, man. The podcast, the magazine, everything, right? But what I like is, for those that don't know, between the three of us, every month we rotate the topic, whatever it might be. We take turns picking it. With that being said, I never know Dr. Wade said Tamika Mallory. I don't know how Kofi gonna feel about that. I don't know how we feel about it. And then we switch. Now we doing Black Thought book. I don't know how Dr. Wade gonna feel about that, but we all read something that's different. It makes us stretch and expand ourselves. And as we're reading it together, we voice note, man, so in chapter 5 they said, and they went into, so as we're doing that process, it makes for a deeper reading community. And I love that for us to make us better people. You got to read stuff that's different. You got to go outside your normal box.
Mm-hmm.
So many folks want to stay in their same little pool of what they read forever. And I ain't knocking that. At least you're reading something. But to go outside of your normal selection, that's how you grow and expand and get better as a person, I think. So I think I'm glad that we have this together to have that experience with, man.
And it builds trust because, you know, I trust y'all. Y'all trust me. So when I put something in your hands, then you're like, I trust. I mean, it's just that residual piece, that reciprocal piece. So y'all put me up. Kofi put me straight on game. Like this was an introduction for me. When a lot of people been on, like you said, you've been a fan for years, Sean. You know, Kofi been tapped in. This is y'all second time. This was my first time. And it was beautiful. And I will mirror Kofi because Kofi was like, it was written well. It was written beautifully. And I love how the chapters are set up. They're not long chapters. You can get in. Now, it's in depth. But there's not a whole bunch of words on a page. There's a couple of filler pages with like the intro of the chapter and the parts. And to me, that just makes a book more readable. Like I love it. And I love the cover. I like the colors. I like the creativity on there. It's a beautiful book. I would be attracted to it just straight off of the creativity and the artistry in the cover. And I didn't know he was a painter, that type of artist. So like shout out to the artists, all the artists building, the creatives in the building.
Yeah. So I want to start somewhere on page 7 real quick. I want to read this and then we kind of talk about this. Because this is kind of like where it all started. It's on page 7. It says, when I was around 4 or 5, I once took a glass of water and poured it slowly into the back of a television set in my room. It was one of those big he said big back big back TVs that had all these
Not the big bag.
tubes and wires crisscrossing in and out of each other, all kinds of things going on in the back. The water trickled through the vents, but the set didn't catch fire. It smoked, and like that smell, the scent of the wires being burnt out, it was mysteriously, he said, and I liked the smell, the scent of the wires being burnt out. It was mysteriously and electrical and intensely satisfied. Pouring water into the television wasn't an act of destruction, but of discovery. Left to my own devices, I would conduct various experiments at home, fueled by an intense curiosity and imagination and never-ending desire to understand cause and consequence. I also love waging war with the plastic military figures we call army men. My cousin Sean and my Aunt Vig's youngest son, but only 2 years older than me, would come over with a boom pow explosion of tanks, bombs, or rifle shot in our imaginary battles. We would press the plastic faces of our soldiers into the flames from a lighter until they melted unto the cameo green mound. Smoke, fire. So yeah, let's start. I wanted to start with that because that's kind of like where the story of everything started to take place in his life. He's 6 years old at this time, you know, and as a 6-year-old, we all are curious of certain things. We experimented with certain things. We did certain things and didn't know the ramifications of certain things that we might do. It's being a kid, you being, you know, being experimental on certain things, right? So, you know, he developed a smell like the smell of burnt, you know, of that burnt smell, you know, and, you know, they would, you know, he would play along with the lighters and burn the army men. It kind of took me down memory lane too. I remember going to Sack and Save and Walmart and buying, you know, and begging my grandmother to buy the pack of green army men, and me and my brother.
Kofi, they were stuck like this. They were stuck like that.
Don't
throw in the grenade. They be like,
oh, yo. We might be age, yeah, but you know, it took me back to that, man. But you know, that's where it all started, where a lot of stuff started to take place in his life as well as take place, you know, in his mom life. So let's talk about that, man. So how do y'all feel about that, man? Let's get more into that, man. His sensation for the burnt smell ended up causing a situation where he experienced his first loss. And
I'm gonna do it like.
Go ahead.
I'm ask Dr. Wade because Dr. Wade had a outing with her friends like about a month or two ago, and she was telling me, she was like, man, just watching the campfire, man, watching the fire and the flames. So talk about that a little bit, Ashley, like understanding the attraction to fire, or the attraction to the, you know, the flickering flames or the smell or whatever. Like, that's totally understandable, right?
Because it's intriguing. Fire is intriguing, and we don't really get to explore it. And you know, Kofi said it perfectly. Like, this is when he started being curious about things. And even like in general, people like the smell of gas. Have y'all heard of that? People like the smell of certain things, and it may seem weird, things that may seem super weird to somebody. Like, why would you? I mean, that's weird. It's actually something that's interesting to somebody. So like, especially with me being a fire sign, when I was actually able to have a campfire when we went out to the cabin, it was just looking at it, you know, melt, and looking at it burn the wood and the different parts of it. It's very intriguing, and we really don't get a chance to explore fire, especially up close. And so I was intrigued by it. And so I found it very interesting. And two, you know, when I read that part of the book, I was like, dang, it's a wonder he didn't become a scientist. Because I thought, you know, at some point that's where he was going with that. Like, oh, I like experiments. I like that. But if you notice too, like, he was done. Like, after that, you didn't hear anybody about any more experimentation on that level. But it is something that, you know, again, we don't really get to appreciate, even just nature in general, not to get off the topic, but there are lots of things that we don't really get to appreciate up close for whatever reason. We just may not be around it, especially fire, because it can be destructive. But I always talk with Matt about this too, but sometimes it's good for things to be destroyed. So looking at things from both sides, unfortunately for him, it was his family home. Like, it wasn't like something, you know, that he set on fire. Like when the army men and burned down, he literally, without trying to, as a 6-year-old kid, destroyed the family home. So that was a trigger.
I think something just struck my mind that I always say in private, right? A lot of times for us Black people, you gotta live life perfect. You can't afford to experiment, right? So like Kofi and myself, we have older children, they're driving age and all that, right? Our kids can't afford to be an inexperienced driver. Oh, daddy, I made a top turn on the curb and tore the front of the car up, or I backed over something and tore the rear end up. Like, that's probably the family only vehicle. And your experiment as a young driver with the only car we got to go back and forth to work. We can't afford to experiment at the house. All we got is this house.
Right.
We can't afford to go in the yard and do something because so many things for us is scarcity. You can't have the same kind of creative freedom that other kids might have. And that just struck my mind thinking about it. Like, we can't afford to play around and mess around. Like, we got to be so perfect in everything we do, unfortunately, man.
Mm-hmm. And then even they fast forward to like homeowners insurance. Like nowadays, especially in apartment life, you got to have a homeowner's insurance just in case. And in that case, I'm sure they didn't talk about it. He didn't mention, of course, he was a kid, but homeowner's insurance and even just being able to recover something, it didn't seem like they were able to recover. You know what I'm saying? And so fast forward now, like homeowners insurance and things like that. Again, these are additional topics, but they are all related to the fact that this is what happened, and it just started a trajectory, and it not only affected, of course, his life, but his family, brother. I mean, we can get into the weeds there because his brother actually went to jail that day as a young man, and that became a whole spiral. You know what I'm saying? And so, like, homeowners insurance is important. We don't think, because I hate paying my bill. I hate paying the homeowners insurance. But now, especially after reading this book, I'm like, okay, I see the point of it. Kind of like other insurance, but especially homeowners insurance is having somewhere to go, being able to be stable at some point and have a home or recover monies from damages and stuff like that. They didn't get to recover anything. Everything was just lost in the fire.
Hey, y'all, this reminds me of the quote where they say, it's expensive to be poor. It's very expensive to be poor.
Mm-hmm.
A lot of times, talk about the insurance. Like we in Louisiana, Kofi, Mississippi. All these hurricanes come and floods come and storms come. How many folks lose their stuff in these floods and storms and couldn't find out? Oh, no insurance. Couldn't shake back. Now you got to relocate. Like, all these things come up on a regular basis amongst our community, kind of more in private, more than public. But it's a great public conversation about these topics about poverty and about the things that a lot of folks, not being irresponsible, you don't have it. That's different. Like, not having it and not caring different than not having it. You don't have it. You know what's important? We ain't got it.
Yeah.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah. Yeah, it's important to have it, man. You mentioned flooding, and we'll get off of that, but you mentioned flooding. That's a process within itself. If you don't ask for it, you don't get it. So even if you have the insurance and their flood come in and it floods your house and damage your house, and you try to file it on your insurance, if you don't have that additional flood insurance, something that they're not gonna tell you, then you asked out anyway. You know what I'm saying? But definitely, man, to have, you definitely need to have that insurance, man. But go ahead.
Here's a good, beautiful discussion question. How can one reframe past struggles as creative fuel? Us as creatives and writers, that's a powerful question. I want to hear what y'all think about that particular framing question right there.
Say it one more time.
The question you asked on the slide number 7, how can one reframe past struggles as creative fuel? I want to hear y'all thoughts about that particular question.
I'll let you go first, sis.
I mean, this is something that I like to talk about because I think it is important for us to get to a particular place where we can look at our struggles. I mean, that part, and then, take accountability if it's necessary, and then build into self through what you learn. And even with that, he said something so important on page 10. He says, one of the most valuable lessons I've learned. So long as we are okay and we are safe, nothing else matters. Things might be lost forever, but even when our souls are broken, burned, or misplaced, they can be rebuilt, pieced back together, quilted into something new, and maybe something beautiful. So again, having that safety, keeping in mind that, like, whenever you tap into the things that happen in life, it still can be something beautiful. I think people are scared of looking at certain things, because even I'm sure it took him a lot in this book to deal with the guilt and things like that. But even, approaching it, knowing that life can be beautiful, you can have your perspective. And then at the end of the day, it can be built, pieced back together. You know what I'm saying? And quilted into something new and beautiful. To me, that was inspirational. as a person who's very into self-help, as a person who's very into like self-respect, reflection, introspection, and personal growth, I mean, I think it is important for us to continue to share and uplift each other and remind each other that even as we go through this journey and we start pulling things out, this book talks a lot again about trauma. He experienced lots of trauma, but being able to pull those things out, look at it for what it is, and build from it and grow from it and heal from it and still have love and build into yourself through all those things with love for yourself and grace. And that's something we don't always even know is available. So we just shut ourselves off, because even with this book, this man could have been closed off. Too much trauma. Nope, I'm closed off. I'm not available. I don't want love. I'm scared. You know what I'm saying? I'm afraid, because that's what trauma creates. Trauma creates more and more fear. And there's all types of levels of it, abandonment, like all types of levels. But just knowing that you can still create something beautiful, but still not being afraid to look at it and see what it is and tap into that. That's my take on it.
I like that. I definitely like that. And my thoughts and views are the same as, look at it, analyze it, take it for what it is, you know, um, and move past it. Don't let even though that's hard to say, move past it, don't let it dictate you moving forward, but again, analyzing it, um, and figuring out how to move past that, whether that's, through friends, whether that's through family, whether that's through professional help, whether that's through local healer, you know what I'm saying? But don't let it define you. That's how, you're able to you're able to move forward, heal from it, and definitely, learn from it, because it's a lesson, it's a life lesson, you know what I'm saying? It's a learning lesson. And again, take it for what it is. We all go through our own particular traumas. We grew up, dealing with certain things. We're dealing with certain things now, even in our adulthood life, man. But we can't let that define us. We can learn from it and be grateful. I'm grateful for a lot of things. I've had a lot of things in my life that happened to me. A lot of trauma things, a lot of things at an early age, even as an adulthood, at just mistakes I made before becoming adult through the trauma. And though that trauma didn't know how to analyze it, didn't know how to deal with it, and I began to act out a particular way, my actions became different because I didn't know how to handle it. Like you said, sister, being bottled up, didn't want to actually talk about it, didn't want to be vulnerable, you know what I'm saying, and speak about it, because, we grow up in a community where, you don't go around telling people your business. You suck it up, you know what I'm saying? You move on, you tough. Don't let, so, and that's particularly how I grew up. You know what I'm saying? We don't show our feelings in our community. We don't tell each other we love you. We tough. We deal with it and we move forward. But just learning from it. And even with the things in my past, and even with some of the things, I got some heavy things going on in my life right now, but I appreciate, what I'm saying, a lot of those hard lessons. You know what I'm saying? I really appreciate it, because because I come out on the other end stronger than I've ever been. And I always learn certain things about myself. You know what I'm saying? I learn about myself through these things, right? So, again, like you said, just looking at it, analyzing it, and then, finding a way to move on through it, what it looks like to move on through it, you know what I'm saying? With, again, some type of support system. We don't need to have this bottled in friends, family, or even, professional help. You know what I'm saying? At times, get you some professional help. There's nothing wrong. We get professional help, because even in our community, that's frowned upon too, going to a psychiatrist, you know what I'm saying, and spilling all your family business or spilling your personal business, you know what I'm saying? But sometimes we need that in order to, you know what I'm saying, to heal, you know what I'm saying, in order to be able to move forward, you know what I'm saying, to stop, letting that, because that those lessons and those traumas can can really destroy you if you don't deal with it, you know what I'm saying? And I'll be honest, there's been times in my life where I didn't know how to move forward from certain situations and certain traumas and certain adversities where I wanted to give up. You know what I'm saying? I completely wanted to give up on the things that I got going on positive, and even give up on life, at one particular time. So it's very important, man, to look at that, you know what I'm saying, take it as a learning lesson, you know what I'm saying, and move through it, figure out how to move through it, you know what I'm saying, and and I'm guaranteed you're gonna come out on the other side stronger and better and know a little bit more about yourself that you didn't know about yourself, you know what I'm saying, from the past. So that's my take on it.
I guess my 2 cents on that particular question would be us being creatives and once again being writers and artists. I use my adversity and pain to make lessons. Because we are teachers, we're instructors. So my hope is always that somebody could read something in a book and say, wow, based on Sean going through this, I know how to avoid this, how to circumnavigate it, or how to get through it at least, right? So I told a person one time, if you read all of my books, if you read all of them, you pretty much know a lot of my life story because it's in the books.
Mm-hmm.
I speak about my brother-in-law being shot in front of our house. We'll get to that later. I speak about the fear of my grandparents dying, and then my grandparents literally dying. My worst nightmare actually happened. I speak about that. I speak about being in college, trying to graduate, and this statistics class is whipping my ass, bro. Like, I'm not going to graduate. I'm not going to graduate. And how do you get around that? I speak about everything I go up against in these publications, man. These books are very transparent. These books, I'm very much bearing these things. And you know what? I think some of my best writing is in pain, to be honest. Mm-hmm. Some of my best writing comes from pain because the conviction and the fervor I'm talking about is because I went through it. I'm not sitting there being hypothetical. I'm not making up something in my imagination. I'm just being an observer telling you what happened. I'm being a reporter at this point. So for me, the pain, it makes some beautiful content.
Yeah. And as we talk about that, I wish, his and a prime example, his mother, she didn't know how to deal with it. She didn't know how to analyze it, learn from it, and then figure out a way on how to move through it. You know what I'm saying? After, the house burnt down and she lost everything, losing the house, she lost a piece of herself. He lost a piece of himself. He, even to this day, he talks about still being, having that guilt of burning down something because they lost that home was their identity. So they lost a lot of things that was attached to them and a lot of things that she was actually proud from. You know what I'm saying?
Man, Dr. Wade being the woman of the staff, man. Speak on this, Dr. Wade, only you can. Talk about the importance of a home to a woman. Because most times us guys, we can live anywhere. Most guys can live almost any damn where. But a woman, she got that idea house and how she want to have it set up. And he very descriptive in the book about what it looked like, the decor, the floors, and the records and the encyclopedias. Like she had her thing set up. And to lose all of that all of a sudden in an instant. Speak on that, Dr. Wade, please. Because we can't.
Well, I have a limited perspective on that because I don't have children. So I can only say so much. And there's a lot more that I'm sure that y'all can share, but it's a safe space. Like we, as women, we curate safe spaces for the most part in the aesthetics of the home, what we have that make it smell good, the routine of cleaning it, where we put things, the organization of it. Because typically that's what we do. When y'all move in the house, don't nobody care where everything go. Or usually it's the woman that cares where, put this over here, move this. No, I don't like it right there. Put the TV, put the this. Usually that is it's the curation piece. And then from the single parent lens, because my mom was a single parent, just the sacrifice that it takes to even be able to have a home. You see what I'm saying? With children. Growing up, I can imagine, you know, because he mentioned, I mean, just first of all, being a 6-year-old, being able to grow up in a home is a play. Because a lot of children live in apartments. You know, they grow up with apartment life. There's nothing wrong with either version, but having a home and, you know, curating it and making, and each person got their room, they got their space, they got their closet, their clothes, you know what I'm saying? Even going to you know, to the restroom, everybody got their stuff. Like, it is a safe space. It is a haven, especially if a woman makes it. Typically it's a haven. Typically it's for you to be comfortable. We can all remember going to our granny house and being sleepy automatically. She gonna have snacks. You're gonna come in, you're gonna get comfortable, cozy somewhere. You're gonna be sleep, and comfortability is so important when it comes to what in my opinion, what women bring to a space. And I can just imagine when she pulled up, and not only that, the financial sacrifice. You gotta save money. You gotta, whether she purchased it or not, however that look. The point is, especially as a single parent, you have to do a lot of sacrificing on the front end. And I'm speaking on my mom's behalf on that. Then finally you get a home. Finally you make it to wherever it's supposed to be. And God damn it, excuse my language, it burns down because my son was just being curious. And I do want to call out that he mentioned that she didn't come on him. Because, you know, you would think your parent would be like,
I love that. I love that. I love that.
It wouldn't be for you. Because he didn't even mention that she even brought it up over and over.
She didn't. Right. She didn't. It's something that he carried personally. She didn't make him carry it. He chose to carry that himself.
Yeah, that's true.
She didn't put that on him.
That's true. That's true. She, you know, you know, he, you know, he left, you know, he left with his mom, boyfriend, the brother stayed, you know, they come back after cause when he described it, it was like he was describing it like he was just real nonchalant, didn't worry about it. When he slung the little man, you know, not the little man, but the lighter, because it's, you know, he had been burning the army man for so long, it got hot. So he slung it and it caught a fire. He tried to put it out. After he couldn't put it out, you know what I'm saying? He come down. If you know anything about the row homes, you know, which I didn't know anything, about the row homes. So I had to do some research. What is a Philadelphia row home? You know, and they particularly, you know, houses, you know, compressed, you know, with each other 2, 3, 4 floors, you know what I'm saying? And he say he's coming downstairs and, you know, shoot, it done caught a fire, it's burning, and he come down and, you know, like he's nonchalant, and his mom's boyfriend is asking what's going on. And he was like nonchalant. They left and come back. And that's when he realized what the F that I've just done. And even with his mom looking at it, you said she didn't blame him. She hold his hand and tell him it's going to be all right, long as everybody is okay, right? You know what I'm saying? And even after that, you know, and them moving back into the basement and then having to move in with, you know, later on with his father's, folks, she never did. And even after that, she never did say, well, we don't have anywhere to stay because of you. We burnt our house down. We never retrieved them. Oh, I'm on this, I'm on that because of you burnt the house down. She never did, but she knew that he was hurting. She knew that he was carrying that, and he would never talk about that. You know what I'm saying? And I applaud him for even having the strength to write about it in the book, because he didn't talk about that thing about burning the house down. He didn't talk about how he carried that guilt for so long, and through the house being burnt down, certain events start to spiral. You know what I'm saying? And one of the things that began to spiral was his mother. His mother couldn't carry it again, like we all talked about, looking at it, analyzing it, and figuring out how to work through it and move past it and make it be a learning lesson, you know what I'm saying, a life lesson. She never obtained that, you know what I'm saying? She never got back what she lost, and she began to lose herself, right? Where she began to lose herself, where she, because he described his mama as her mother and father was a part of the Nation of Islam. They were Muslims, you know what I'm saying? They was people in the community doing certain things, even though his father was doing some other stuff that eventually had him killed. And that's another process of him never really knowing his dad, because his dad died when he was a baby, I think about 1 year old, if I'm not mistaken. Right. So, and even with that might have been a process for her that she needed to look at too, because even she really didn't get over the loss of her Black Thought's father, and then now the loss of her house, and she thought was how she was able to keep a man. Go ahead.
I want to talk about compound losses, right? As you're rattling off this list, I'm thinking about it. So she lost Black Thought's father.
Mm-hmm.
She lost the house.
Mm-hmm.
The same night, lost her oldest son.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So a lot of times as people, we have the capacity to handle one punch, right?
Mm-hmm.
Take one shot. Okay, boom, you got it on that one. But multiple punch, a combination, be different.
Mm-hmm.
That's whenever that breaking point comes, when there's a combination of things that just seem like it's just, I can't get no wins, man. It's just mounting. It's
Mm-hmm.
just growing on me.
Mm-hmm.
That's when to get to that point to where it's like no return. You know what I'm saying?
Right. Yeah.
And so that was a lot.
They talk about how independent she was. So
Yeah.
imagine now you've been independent. You have a house. You feel like you're getting somewhere. Come on now, upward mobility. You got some stability,
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And then now you got to depend on somebody and family. And then, like Kofi said, she had to go live with her, basically her in-law family. And so, I mean, so she really couldn't even live her own life because she was in a house with people who had expectations of her.
Mm-hmm.
And I can just imagine, her dealing with that. And like part of it is I'm glad that she didn't like go in on him.
Mm-hmm.
But I wish she would have talked to him a little bit more. And he doesn't say that they had continued conversations about it, but he also didn't realize how much she struggled or how that affected her, because it was like, okay, let's move on. So again, looking at it, sitting with it, we talked about that and analyzing it, but then like feeling the gravity of it without the blame, the shame, the guilt, and just saying it's okay, but like, just having more explanation. And, in my opinion, I think that may have been helpful for her to express herself, because I don't know if she ever did.
Yeah.
We'll never know if she ever was able to really fully express how she felt to anybody. And even look at her track record of men.
Mm-hmm. They were right. They always put hands on her, was putting hands on her, but she also feel like that having something of her own, that's what attracted men to her. Nobody wants want a woman that don't have nothing or staying with somebody else. He talks about that being in there. So she had an attachment of having something, you know what I'm saying, in order for someone to look. I hate that she had that perspective, but she feel like she had to have a house or something in order for a man to be attracted to her. And we see down the line, she began to lose herself and began to get on drugs. And you see another process, his brother go to jail. He burnt the house down. His father dies. He sees his mother on drugs. And then he talks about going into the drug house and trying to pull his mother out of the drug house as a young age. So, that definitely was, can affect a young person's psyche, seeing his mother destroying herself. He's walking into a place where everybody is destroying themselves, and he know it, and he's trying to pull his mother out of this drug house, man. So,
and then the contradiction of him getting into the drug game,
which was
a crazy cycle, right?
Yeah.
And we've heard a lot of guys talk about, guys that used to sell drugs. They talk about at one point or another, people in your own family being on said drugs. But now you're a part of the drug game. Yeah. It's this crazy Dr. Wade mentioned it before about the book called When Crack Was King. It is a literary podcast. We do mention books. The book When Crack Was King is amazing. I had the pleasure of interviewing the brother years ago on my channel, right? But that book is an amazing book about the whole the crack era, if you will, the history of it. And a lot of our age demographic, we are around that time frame, the Reagan era and all of that. Around that time frame, bro. You got to realize, a lot of our co-workers, a lot of our folks now, they crack babies. They're the babies of that era.
Speak a word. And it also too mentions that was the beginning of like the grandparents taking in, the children, because the parents were locked into that addiction cycle. And so the grandparents had to step in and parent. That was also mentioned in the book. And it didn't dawn on me that, I mean, it makes sense, but it didn't really come together fully until that was specifically mentioned in here. And I was like, oh, that makes so much sense, because it was a era, like it was a age group of people who were much more affected. I mean, the demographic was wide. It affected anybody who tapped into it the one time, as far as crack and the addiction potential of it. But overall, it was like a particular age group of people who were, adults at that time who were affected the most by that.
Yeah, that's great. He didn't have a good hustle game. His mama was hearing.
Not at all. Not at all.
But they said he was soft. He was friendly.
And that's correct. Like I see, like in this book, I see so many similarities to my story growing up. I grew up in a I grew up in a household where my grandmother raised me and his grandmother raised him. I lived in a house, you know what I'm saying? I never lived in an apartment until I got on my own and I went to college. And my grandmother owned apartment complexes and owned houses, and we had a farm out in the country. And where we stayed at, it was a drug infested area because they had a cafe. So in between the apartment complexes, the houses, and the cafe was an alley. And through the alley, this is where the drugs dealers was at during the mid 80s, early 90s. So me being a young boy and being a teenager, I was able to come out and walk right on the steps where my grandmother's apartment was always around. She had apartments. The house was in the center of the apartment complex, and then the alley, and then they had a cafe, and me seeing drugs, and then seeing my auntie, two of my aunties, which is my grandmother's daughters, become heavily on drugs a few times, and seeing some of my cousins walk up and down through the alleys on drugs, seeing them metamorph into zombies, you know what I'm saying? Face shriveling up, getting small, sores on the face, sores on the hand, you know what I'm saying? Having a house, cars, to basically walking around the streets, chasing that next hit. And seeing how that impacted my grandmother, I turn around and do the same thing. I turn around and now I'm trying to, that's one reason why I smoke weed. I used to smoke weed, but I never did drugs. I never snorted powder. I never smoked cocaine. I never did heroin. I never, popped pills. I never did none of these things because I seen how it affected my grandmother and seen two of my aunties on it twice. And my grandmother literally happened to pay money to send both of them off twice but I turn around and do the same thing and try to destroy the same community by selling drugs, in the community, you know what I'm saying? And so like I said, I just see a lot of things. Go ahead.
You know what, Kofi? Jay-Z made an awesome point about the drug dealer and the drug addicted person. Both of them got an addiction. Both of them got an addiction. We just frowned upon one of them, but the drug dealer got his own addictions. Addiction to the allure. He called a song allure, right? The clothes, the money, the women, the whatever. He can't stop doing it. Even at a certain amount of money, he can't just unplug and stop doing it, put it down. He's addicted to all these things. And I saw a person one time that was an addicted person, right? They told me, they said, Sean, why this person, it was a drug dealer that was murdered, right? Why did this person get glorified? It was a drug dealer, but I'm shunned and ostracized and frowned upon for being on said drugs. They sold the drugs. What's the grand difference with the question? What's the big difference?
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an answer for that question. There is no big difference to me. There is no difference.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
You know, in my opinion, I think the motivation is different. And it's unfortunate. I see exactly what you mean, Sean. You are spot on with that. But I think when people, and I can't really speak to this, but I'm just assuming. So here we go. We may have to tap back into Kofi. But like, it's for upward mobility. If we grow up poor, I don't know any well-off kid. I don't know any kid, even looking at my family history, and a couple of my, cousins is like, okay, y'all, we grew up in a decent family. I don't know any well-off kid that's like, I'm gonna start selling drugs. It's usually the poverty, it's usually the area, it's usually the environment. There's usually other things that spark that part of like, okay, I'm gonna take this risk so I can make this money. And then on the addict side, I think typically people were looking for an escape. They're looking for fun. Like those type of things are, to me, the difference makers within that. And again, going back to vulnerability, Kofi, I do appreciate you sharing parts and everybody that's sharing on here, because vulnerability is not something easy to come by. I mean, there's lots of reasons for us to be closed off. So just being open and sharing stuff like that is important to me. But I do want to redeem the mom a little bit, because early in the book, he says she, talking about his mother, she was the one who first saw the importance of art in my life and both enabled and fostered it. Loved my own artistic vision, knowing that it would be saving grace. To her, I'm reading. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
To her, my imagination was a precious gift to be honed, a blessing from the spiritual realms that allowed me to see the world with different retinas. So, even before she got way out there, she was the first one to say, okay, there's something different about my son. You know what I'm saying? And he talks about, like, in their family, they didn't celebrate Christian holidays. That's a whole subject, because he grew up Muslim. But the gifts that she did give him, like it was art supplies or art class or paint by numbers, like she really noticed that in him and cultivated that. And I want to speak to that because, Sean, you talk about that a lot with your mom and, your story, with karate and different martial arts and stuff and how that cultivated. I would like to hear that, from y'all, like what was y'all's cultivation like early from maybe somebody you saw, family or not, and that person like gave back to you and built into your curiosities, or they saw something in you that was unique and was like, oh, there's something different. Let me, pour into that kid.
Yeah, my mom, my grandmother, and my aunt Sharon, right? The three major women in my life, period, right? From an early age, like 3-4 years old, I was deep off into the martial art, a child of the 80s, Kung Fu theater, all that, right? I would say that those women in my life recognized something in me early, and it was like, all right, Sean on this wave, let's foster that. Let's feed into that. So we at Walmart, checking out of Walmart, the little magazine aisle. I'm seeing the ninja magazines and the Kung Fu magazines. I can get one of them, Mama. I don't know I'm a child, I don't know what it costs. I don't know if she's a school teacher. I don't know if she even got it. She never told me no. She never said, well, nah, not this time, or maybe next time. She was like, all right. And she'll get it for me. I go in the back of the magazine, they got nunchucks and ninja stars and books about martial arts getting better. I can get this mama, and they go ahead and they get it for me. Like, they really, really played into something that they saw I had interest in. When it became basketball, the same thing. So, just like Black Thought in that book he talked about, those women in my life, they really put the fan on the flames of what I was trying to do. And it gave me a lot of confidence in, like, I can do something. I can be something. It didn't seem impossible for me. And that went over to my adult life, me feeling so confident and bold about what I'm doing right now. Those women really, really fed into that.
I thought that was important too. And I definitely want to hear from Kobe, because we don't always get that from family. So I thought in here that he got it from his mother, because a lot of us, we have outside forces. It doesn't come from within the family. So I just want to call that out. Yes, sir, Kobe. What were you saying?
Nah, I was just gonna say, like for me, my story is different. I wasn't raised with my mama, wasn't raised with my daddy. Well, my grandmother raised me, and I was actually given away to my grandmother, and at the age of 5. But my grandmother and my grandfather raised me and one of my brothers, which is close to me. Um, they were strong willed. So my grandfather didn't say a whole lot. He said something when it was just time to say something. You know, my grandfather was an entrepreneur. You know, they had the apartment complex, they rented houses. He had a farm, he had a logging company, he had a cafe, he had a cleaners. So he didn't say much. So but we was raised to be strong. Like we didn't no show feelings. Don't I guess they feel like they knew you being weak. You know, and I didn't learn that till later on in life to express myself, my feelings, and my emotions. So I was different. My grandmother raised me, my brother, my cousin, who I say is my brother. This is my first cousin. She used to dress us alike. People used to think me and my first cousin was twins. And then my other cousin, April. And so, but I was different. You know, I was into writing at an early age. I was into poetry and I was into rapping. I began to rap. So one of my teachers had me to write Miss Bryant, never forget her, my 8th grade teacher. She poured into me because she seen something in me. Oh boy, you good at, writing poetry and putting words together and rhyming. So she tasked me with a duty. I wrote, I think I talk about it in the Griot and Griots, modern day Griot, where, I wrote something about HIV. And but she poured into me. And then 2 of my friends at the time, Danny and Pat, they was my best friends. And we began to form a group called 3 PAT. So they were the ones who pour in me and help me develop my style and buy blank tapes and direct me. And then getting into the studio, Michael Collins with G and Me Studio, he seen something in all 3 of us and he poured into us and didn't really charge us that much money. We were students. He's wanted to develop us and home in on our crafts and direct us to certain people where we almost got signed when I was in high school in the 10th grade. I think I talk about that too. We almost signed to Rap A Lot Records at an early age because he was dealing with selling exclusives, selling beats to Rap A Lots, and he was selling them exclusively. He was signing his rights away to the music. And but those are some of the people who poured into me and honed in on my skills and made sure I had certain things to write with and paper and how to correctly write a 16 and how to write how long a chorus is supposed to be, how to structure it, how it to make sense. And even when I started buying my first keyboard, Mike from the producer showed me how to freestyle and play keys, you know what I'm saying? And how to record. They had DAT tapes at that time, him giving me DAT tapes and showing me how to save the music onto a DAT tape, and understanding music theory comes the drums, the snares, the bass, the instrumental, the break in between, you know what I'm saying? These were the things that he taught me because he seen something in me. And so those was the guy, Mike and Miss Bryant and my friend Danny and Pat was the ones who poured into to me and developed me and gave me the things that I needed and directed me to the people to help me along the way as well.
Could I piggyback on Dr. Wade's question with a question of a conversation on the men in his life? Because Black Thought is also known for being a super fashionable, stylish brother. Every time he step out, he's known for expressing himself via fashion, right? And he speaks through the whole book about, again, the different men around his mama, whether they were good guys or not as far as their character. Those guys are always sharply dressed. The men in his family. His family lineage was known for being sharp dressers, having their clothes tailor-made and certain fabrics and the hats and all that stuff. So I want to talk about the men in our lives. Of course, my grandfather, my daddy, and my uncle Travis being the main guys in my upbringing life. And just me seeing guys wear their pants on their waist, not sagging off of their butt, seeing guys. My grandfather and my daddy are super religious guys, right? So they always wore dress clothes. Like not just on Sunday morning. I mean, 7 days a week. My grandfather in the yard cutting grass. He wearing some older dress pants, a button-up shirt with the sleeve rolled up. That's how he in the garden. That's how he in the yard.
Right.
That's how he going fishing. He's never wearing like a t-shirt. I've never seen him in a t-shirt.
Yep.
My whole life, I've never seen my grandfather in a regular old t-shirt.
Yep.
Never.
Yep.
He always buttoned up. He always, you know, that's kind of what I saw. So my daddy as well, right? So, you know, that's what it comes to, like guys dressing up and getting fly, getting fresh. That's what I saw growing up, you know what I mean? So I just want to speak on that part of the book as well.
Yeah. I never seen my granddaddy neither in a t-shirt. He always had on dress slacks, a button-up shirt, church socks, or what we call them, and you know,
hard bottom shoes.
Never seen him in a pair of tennis shoes all the time, and
never into the shoes.
Yep, and he was he liked to hunt. He liked to hunt. He liked to fish. So when he hunted, he didn't have boots and all of the camouflage on. He had a button-up shirt, pair of slacks, and hard bottom shoes on. You know, out there doing what he loved to do. You know what I'm saying? Even out there when we was on the farm on Saturdays and we out there feeding the chickens and milking the cows and baling the hay and feeding the dogs and picking peas and shelling peas and pulling the plums off the tree. You know, it was the same thing. I'd never seen, you know, he was always dressed.
Can I say something right quick?
Yeah, go ahead.
We all being transparent. So this is the most emotional podcast ever, it seems. Like, it's crazy. My grandfather, right? We had a family dinner at this restaurant one time, and my mom get my grandfather into the car, you know, sit him in the car and everything. They're about to leave. I would get inside the car, give him a kiss on the cheek. All right, Papa. And I had this certain little dog hat on that night, right? He was looking at me. He said, "Where you get that hat from?" I said, "You like it?" He said, "I sure like that hat." He didn't admire the hat. I took it off and I gave it to him. He would always wear the hat, right? So my grandfather's funeral, I wore that hat for the funeral, man. Like I just had it, you know, had it on real low. I was just kind of like hiding inside the hat almost, man. It was just an emotional connection to me, to the hat, you know what I'm saying? And it just sparked my mind thinking about that right now, man. Like, and he always had his hats on, man, all the time, bro. So.
You know that first of all, again, thank y'all, because again, we don't hear a lot from Black men. Like Kofi said, you probably keep all that bottled up to the side. You know, you may or may not write that type of stuff down. So thank y'all for sharing. But that fashion, that 80s, that old fashion, you know, they took pride in how they presented, especially the men. Even the women, that, you know, that vintage fashion and the colors or the certain, you know, way that they wear their earrings and their hair and things like that. Like that was a whole play, and I definitely recognize that. And he did take a lot from that. And I think that he mentioned that is one of the things that hurt him so much, because he did get some neat pieces and it was lost in the fire. You know, he never really, it took him so long to recover his wardrobe. You know, even from a kid, of course, he was 6. So, but he still remembers having things, you know, there that were important to him that end up being lost. So it took him a while to regain that. So I'm loving the fact that that's who he is, and as a fashion nova, like a fashionista. But, you know, just knowing that, you know, it came from those elders was important. I want to talk about something real quick. On page 56, he talks about when he starts learning how to like conflict resolve, right, in that area. He talks about the difference between us, this is on 55, is that I learned how to deal with conflict in a pressure cooker, where letting off steam and responding to threats with absolute clarity were essential. Talking about that. Fast forward to the next page. This is what I want to talk about. He goes, every lesson isn't a good lesson. My willingness to use that aggressive, angry energy that I learned as part of South Philly's nuanced code of ethics, speaking of environment, is a mindset that has effed up some important relationships forever. Some things we learn have to be unlearned. So I love that. We were talking about healing. We were talking about that a minute ago. But I love that posture of being like, okay, knowing that some things that I picked up from my environment were toxic. We don't really talk about, he didn't really go into any relationships. I was telling Sean about this earlier and Kofi about this earlier. I would have liked to hear about especially with when childhood trauma, because everybody's gonna have some type of trauma. No life is without conflict. We understand. But especially when you have childhood trauma, I think sometimes we build toxic habits off of our survival. We talk about being in survival mode and stuff. And I would have loved to hear about some of the ways that he noticed that he dripped those toxic traits into his relationships. Now, and I'm just pulling this out. He just said, is a mindset that has effed up some important relationships. Now, we learned about his relationship with Amir and how that played out. But I love that he at least called out. He knew that the mindset effed up some important relationships forever. And I don't think we talk about the unlearning of toxic behaviors and not being able to look at ourselves and see like, damn, yes, I got that because I went through something that I couldn't control, but it became toxic. And then what do I do with that toxic behavior when it comes to relationships? He didn't talk about any relationship in here, as opposed to like how Tamika Mallory went in bam, bam, bam with her relationships. About vulnerability. That's one thing I would have liked to see more is the male vulnerability when it comes to relationships and knowing that you have some toxic things because of your childhood. I don't know what question I want to ask, but talk to me about that.
No, that was good. I want to ask Kofi permission first, then I'll go, right? So Kofi and I had a wonderful, beautiful relationship conversation last night. And of course, for the sake of the podcast, I'm not going into no kind of detail, no kind of nothing. Talk about relationships overall, right? But Kofi, we had a wonderful conversation last night about how we would have reacted in the past to certain things versus how we're trying to react to certain things now. That's the conversation. And that conversation was about, this is what we normally would have did in this particular situation. And the conversation was about, this is what we do now. And this is what I would do in the future. That was the literal conversation last night between two Black men about relationships. That's all relationships, partnerships, romantic friendships. That was our conversation last night between two Black men about how we not do what we did in the past and how it was destructive in the past. It was decisive in the past. It caused a rift in the past. And how we value what we have now. That was the conversation last night.
I'm glad y'all had it. It's beautiful.
Undoing the past, right? I'll let Kofi go a little bit on that if you want.
Because a lot of times and I don't want to say just Black men or Black women, because everybody has a little bit of toxic, but we don't realize how we put that on people that we're in relationships with. Again, he didn't talk about that at all anywhere in the book. And we do know, that he is married and he has, a child at least with his wife, but he had another child. So I'm just curious about the relational piece because I think in 2025, we do have problems in relationships. We, don't see how we each contribute to being stagnant or not moving on or not being happy or being complainers. Like we don't know, we don't really take inventory of what we bring negatively and rectify that. So I'm glad that y'all have that conversation, y'all have that relationship. And especially from the male perspective, he said that aggressive, angry energy. I know a lot of aggressive, angry, or they may not think that they're aggressive and angry, but when you see it, they don't really know how to process through that and acknowledge like, okay, yes, I'm aggressive and angry. Here's why. And here's what I want to do. And shout out to the women real quick before we move on. This was an amazing book. And I love that it pulled out all these things. But I do know that, shout out to the women who are safe and who are caring and who just have that space to give for healing on both sides, because men and women, in relationships, friendships, whatever, we do need to be able to heal and trust and, lean on each other as we grow, because life is full of lessons and conflict and stuff like that. But just having good people like y'all and y'all have that relationship to talk about things so that you can grow and be better, because a lot of people aren't honest. They want this to keep the persona like it's all well. But it's like, well, why can't you keep a relationship then? You know what I'm saying? Or why, so things got to add up. And I just love the safety of the spaces that we do have, y'all have, so that you can continue to grow into the amazing men that y'all are and just continue to be better. Same as, with me, I have a couple of people, including y'all, that I can rattle off and y'all support. So I just wanted to call that out, that whole unlearning and learning and just being honest right here. He doesn't talk about relationships really at all. Personal relationships, but he said he knows that aggressive, angry energy has messed up some very important relationships. So I just want to shout it out.
Yeah. Yeah, we at the 8-hour and 24-minute mark. Yeah, I want to move on to the women's segment and tell people to tap into the book, or y'all want to hit one more piece before we
Let's
go?
talk a little bit more. Let's go for like another 10, 15, because we still ain't talked about Miss Minnie. How y'all want to move through it? And then the wordsmith and the dictionary. Maybe y'all want to talk about him and tapping into the reading part.
Yeah, well, you know,
how do y'all want to go? I'm here for the ride.
The wordsmith, he's definitely a barsmith, a wordsmith.
Oh my God.
A lot of people who are lyricists like himself, are well-read people, so he not only was a part of the Nation of Islam, he began to study from the nations of gods and earths. He was introduced to somebody where they started giving him so he started learning about Pan-Africanism, reading about some of our great leaders and et cetera, et cetera. But going back to when, him and his cousin, in the household and with the dictionary.
Yes.
So, and we know we had, growing up, our families had the dictionaries all in the house, dictionary volume. So, he would go and, be, because he's an artist, he's artistic. So he would draw, what I'm saying? He drew, he did graffiti, which is graffiti is also, and drawing is also an element of hip hop. You know what I'm saying? It's also an expression of artistry. That's another expression, right? So he started out expressing himself through the art, and drawing in, in his mama's encyclopedia, and et cetera. And I'm quite sure he was reading, but, him and his cousin having a competition, and they did definitely start reading because they started using the words and started figuring out, okay, I'm gonna come up with, something real slicker than you is, you know what I'm saying? So him and his cousin had a competition, not only through just drawing, but through the words from the dictionary, through wordplay. So that's how he kind of developed his wordplay style, becoming a barsmith, a lyricist, you know what I'm saying? And et cetera, et cetera. So the more that I read about his early age of with the dictionary, drawing, even doing graffiti on the wall, having his own tags in competition, wordplay with, with his cousin, meeting Amir, which is Quest, you know what I'm saying, which is one of the founders of the Roots, the drummer, you know what I'm saying, and they're developing their relationship, and Amir, you know what I'm saying, and in particular, introducing him to certain things and sounds and to other people, another perspective on life, because Amir was totally, oblivious to the hood. He was like, those hood guys, you know what I'm saying? So he was very sheltered person, and his parents as well knew something that was special about him. Right. In the basement, and he had to, home in on his craft, and that was music, you know what I'm saying? But even going back to his mother, when you speaking about his mother was like, hey, you got to stop writing and messing up my encyclopedias. I'm finna go out, and she went out and bought him all the art stuff that he needed in order to draw and be successful and so forth. Go ahead, Sean.
Let's hit on this too right fast. Despite everything we said so far about what his mama went through in addiction and all that, for those that haven't read the book yet, he stayed in the art school. So let's talk about the schools he went to. He was able to go to. He went to these prominent art schools. And he was saying by the time he go back to the hood in the afternoon time, the guys on the block just waking up. He already went to art school, did all these things, and coming back to the block. He done did all this other stuff that they ain't doing already though. I think about Tupac Shakur, the school he went to for acting and drama with Jada Pinkett Smith. The schools that Busta Rhymes went to, and Talib Kweli, and Jay-Z, Big and Small. Just think about the environments that they were in that made some of the greatest rappers in the world. That's not coincidence, is my point.
Yeah, most definitely, man. Y'all definitely go check him out if y'all ain't aware of who the Roots is, a black.
Oh my God.
Man, y'all need to go and check out, man.
The 10-minute freestyle.
Yeah, he don't get enough. He don't get enough credit. There's a lot of people that recognize him, as being a caliber rapper, but he still don't get the recognition, that he get. He also talk about the people in the industry in the book. He talks about how, you know, them booking because they had they brung that band element, and you did start to see later on life Jay-Z, Nas, other people when they're doing performance, they got the band in behind. So they brung that element of band, poetry, et cetera,
Sure did.
and
Sure did.
book, will book them, the hip hop artists in the industry will book them to be the band, but he talks about how he was the front runner, he was of the band, but he got paid when they booked the band, but the rappers didn't want to be a side of him. He feel like they must have thought he was going to outshine them.
Yep.
But he didn't matter. He said, long as the check cleared, he was good. He
That's
got
all good. Yeah.
way or another. So they definitely respected him. Right?
I want to speak on the practice piece because I love talking about the practice of writing and the art of writing. And my book that came out last year, Rhyme and Reason, it's available on saying3differentbranches.com. I talk about my writing practices. People don't realize this. I write every day at some point. Every day, whether that be poetry, whether it be a short story, whether it be a 16 in hip hop. Every day you got to practice that craft. And I love Black Thought talking about him and his cousin literally battling. I bet I'll do a better 16 than you. I bet I'll do a better 8-bar than you. And going back and forth to the dictionary, encyclopedia. Like, I love that part of the book more than anything because I'm big on the process. And that's why my individual podcast about authors, I love asking authors, what's your process? Where do you write? How do you write? What time do you write? How you overcome writer's block? How you overcome this? Like, I love hearing about that to improve my own craft. This is a sport. This is a craft. You don't just do it every once in a while. Imagine playing ball once a month. I did a poetry set on Tuesday. I told Dr. Wade that. I said, man, I want to do it more. I can't just do it once a month. You can't get better doing it once a month. Imagine playing ball or going to the gym once a month. I go in there once a month and get it in. Like, you can't get better like that. You got to be doing it on a regular basis, man. So I love hearing him talk about the seriousness of the craft, man.
Yeah, most definitely.
It becomes beautiful. I mean, I just checked out that 10-minute whole bar and he can go. But a lot of these artists, I can remember there's some song with Chris Brown and Busta Rhymes where you could tell Chris was trying to freestyle. I don't remember exactly which one it was. But
I know.
Look at me now. Look at me now. Look at me now.
He was trying to freestyle, but he was getting tripped up. Like, his wordplay, he couldn't really. He did a minute. And Busta was like, I got you. Because the thing is, like, the new artists, they don't appreciate that study. And even not only just the study of words, but like the culture. Because when I listen to Black Thought, he can talk about a range of things. And when he talk about it, he be in his bag with it. And he can go and go and go. But he knows so many words. He knows so much that he can connect with the creativity of his words. Right. And I love that too. And I'm just like, you know what? I'm now he's one of my favorites because I'm like, well, shit, he's really in his bag and he can go and he's telling stories. So here we go, Griot. He's telling stories. He's teaching because there's lessons, there's history, there's so much in it. Plus, it's sassy and it's fun and it's engaging. And people don't want to listen to a 10-minute lesson. But that 10-minute rhyme, it just does so much to
and guess what? He does it so effortlessly. He doing it like matter of factly. It's not like he's trying with this effort. He pretty much just rapping like we talking right now. He's going. You know what I'm saying?
Something that he learned from his granny and her relationship with her second husband before he ends. So I love the fact that grannies, talking about grannies, I didn't grow up. My granny, she passed away before I was able to meet her. But that love that we saw from our grandparents possibly, and it, like Kofi said, his granddad he didn't have a whole bunch of words, but there was some love in those households. He mentioned that at Minnie's. He said, I learned of the beauty of true intimacy. What love could look like when all pretense disintegrated into truth. The joy of mutuality, learning to care for someone in their own language. Y'all know I'm always gonna come from like that love component, family. learning to care for someone in their own language, acts of love as natural and consistent, and calm as breathing. Love was the essence, the basis of every action, and profound beauty that flowed from this commitment. He talked about reciprocity in that place too. Again, when we talk about relationships, reciprocity was important. He also mentioned in that same section that he wasn't really there for his older children, but he said with his marriage and the birth of the daughter and then the youngest son, I worked harder to be like the elders I admired for those under my care. And his wife, he says he felt like he found the foundational partnership for that ideal home. We're committed to that vision, choosing home and family, even when it's hard for us to choose each other. So that whole chapter about Minnie, you can tell that his grandma had such an impact on him when it came, and his granddad, you know, of course, the males and the females, but he really loved and he picked up a lot of gems just from how she lived her life. She was an organizer, but she was also a caretaker and ode to the elders because he really gave a lot of love to his granny and his granddad and the elders. So that's how I wanted to end.
Yeah, she definitely you know, was a driving force for him, and you know, and was there through you know, through another one of his toughest time. You know, his mother, you know, being killed and beaten to death.
Lord have
Right,
mercy.
and you know, he moved back in.
Man, both his parents had some violent death, not just death. They had gruesome, violent death. His daddy had a mysterious death. I mean, that's a lot, bro.
Yeah,
It was a lot. Definitely check the book out. It's an excellent book. It really,
Yes,
good.
5 stars, people. We just touched the surface. Trust me.
we
Touch the surface.
We could talk for another hour at least just about the book. Like it's really good.
Yeah, so definitely go
And
tap.
about 200 pages.
Yeah. So go get the book, y'all. Tap into it and get the book, right? You know. But let's get into the woman segment, and the last segment of the hour, one of my favorite segments.
Bring it on home.
Sister, bring it on home with the home run hit.
Hey, and knock it out the park. So this is also my favorite section, of course, because I get to share things that I've learned. So in this woman segment, I'm gonna give ode and flowers to Miss Phyllis Wheatley. Hey, shout out to Phyllis Wheatley.
Yeah.
Phyllis Wheatley was a renowned poet, and she was one of the first poets to actually have a book. And we're talking about her life. She was born on May 8th, 1753 in West Africa. Okay. And she died on December 5th, 1784. So she was alive in the 1700s. Historical podcast, by the way. And she passed away in Boston. She was kidnapped and sold into slavery at the age of 7 or 8. She's an American writer who is considered the first African-American author of a published book of poetry. And I just wanted to take a moment here to, especially, you know, coming from learning about Black thought, I don't think people understand how the intelligence that you have to be a poet. Shout out to all the poets. There's a certain level of intelligence because it's more than words. There's emotion, there's rhyme, there's so many levels to being a poet. I'm not a poet, but I definitely honor the poets that I know. And I want to read a little bit about Phyllis Wheatley from The Education of the Negro and talk about her intellect. Of course, her life was during the 1700s. So think about how far we think we've come. But even in the 1700s, we were brilliant. And she was brilliant, born in West Africa, by the way. But she was a former slave and brought from Africa in 1761. She worked in the household of John Wheatley of Boston. But I really want to talk about her accolades. So within that house, without any training, she learned in 16 months to speak the English language fluently. Mind you, she was from West Africa. And to read the most difficult parts of sacred writings. She had a great inclination for Latin. Again, she was doing all this in the 1700s. And made some progress in the study of that language. Phyllis Wheatley's title to fame rested not on her general attainments as a scholar, but rather on her ability to write poetry. They say her poems seem to have such rare merit that men marveled that a slave could possess such a productive imagination, enlightened mind, and poetical genius. This is Phyllis Wheatley. They also say that she was an exceptionally intellectual person. This is again, in the time frame of the 1700s, she was intellectual, that we were intellectual back then. So I just wanted to give Phyllis Wheatley her flowers as a poet, and as a leader in the realm of publishing books of poetry. And I want to fast forward to some other female poets or in her legacy. I just met, first of all, I want to shout out to our sister, Genevia Powell. She's a poet. She has lots of art that she, and poems that she includes in her book.
Yeah.
I also know my good friend, Adonis. She was a poet. She actually came out to our book club and spit some bars for us. I recently met this author. Her name is Toni Shelton. Shout out to being a local Dallas author. She has some books of poetry. Her new book is called Prodigal, a collection of poems and affirmations. And then I recently met this sister. Her name is Ebony Stewart. Fire poet. And she has a book of poems called Wash. This is her second book. So I just want to make sure that, even giving Phyllis Wheatley her flowers as a poet, as one of the first African-American poets to even have a book of poetry, people who may not even know that they're right in her legacy with the writing and publishing works of poetry in a book form. And then I also want to use Phyllis's story to shout out and get people to go to parks, go outside to the parks and the community spaces, and to even look up these namesakes of the park, because I was spending time with an elder in that community where Phyllis Wheatley Park is. And she was telling me, she was like, man, I bet these kids don't even know who Phyllis Wheatley is.
Nope.
So even besides, giving her flowers, I just want to encourage people to go to your local park. Even if it's not one that is popular with all the bells and whistles, but like find out who these namesakes of these people are who did amazing things back in the day, and their names and their legacy still ring strong today. So Phyllis Wheatley, yes, she was an amazing poet. She was born in West Africa, but she was also an intellectual person. So shout out to all the poets in the building, male and female. We got 2 poets right here in the building. Shout out to Sean and Kofi for being amazing.
Thank you.
And that's my piece today for the women's segment. Shout out.
Thank you very, very much, Dr. Wade, for that shout out and for that amazing segment. And yes, for those that's listening, you will get a book of poetry from us in a few months here. It's coming up pretty soon in a few months. Me and my brother gonna be on deck with our first book of rhymes, The Tales of a Griot, the title. Tales of a Griot. Yeah, title already in the book. Yeah.
Yes. And Dr. Ashley Wade, one of my brothers, Vasa Nicolo Gullah, he says the oldest piece of African-American literature was written by a woman, Lucy Terry, one you can add to your collection. She was a poet as well.
Thank you for that. Let me go ahead and add
yes, she is. You know that remind me of that situation? It remind me of Claudette Colvin and Rosa Parks. Like, for some reason in history, people talk about one particular person, not the other one. I don't know why that happens, like time and time again. But whenever he made that comment in the comments, I saw that and I was like, I know what you're talking about. I don't know why I get put like that, but yeah, it happens.
But it's okay because we teach and we learn. So I do appreciate you for putting me on.
Shout out to the comment section. Shout out for our intelligent audience.
Yes. So give it up, man. Let's give it up one more time, man. Another episode, season 3, episode 6, man. Streams.
We did it again, baby. Did it again.
Y'all, Phyllis Wheatley. Phyllis approves of this message.
That's right.
Yeah. So we out of here, y'all. We definitely appreciate y'all. Go tap into the Upcycled Self by our brother Black Thought from the legendary group Roots. Definitely a lyricist, a wordsmith, you know, intellectual. Yeah. Go check. Yeah. So we out of here, man. We'll see y'all next month, man, for another episode of the Griots Podcast with your fellow Griots and Grioties. We out of here.
Peace.
We thinking the same thing.
Go, 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 Griot. Go, 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 Griot. Go, 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 Griot. Yeah, I'm in the city, yeah. I'm in the spot, in the vicinity. I'm the hottest up in the city, yeah, it really is. I studied the ones that was the realest, the illest, that invented that. Talking about Griots, West African passages for the street stone. Adios, mio, make it get about the Afro-Latinos. Rock their traditions from Africa's West Central. Let's raise a toast to the ancestors of old. For the knowledge comes in the form of a griot. In the form of a griot. Go, griot. Go, 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 griot. Go, 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 griot.
All